Hey everyone, it's patch 3.23 Affliction, and today I want to talk about the farming strategy that I've been doing for the past few days and the farming strategy that got me my headhunter. Today we're going to be talking about delirium farming. Now, delirium farming this league is absolutely cracked. So far, over the past 3 to 4 days of farming this, I've been ranging anywhere between 13 to 15 divines an hour doing delirium mirror, which to me is absolutely insane, just given how we're doing a really simple farming strategy of just walk through the map, kill everything, get your loot, and walk out. And we're also getting to do Deli Mirror at the same time, which to me is a really fun strategy. And I always have a good time doing Deli Mirror. And I'm really happy that for once, Deli Mirror is one of the best farming strategies in the game. It's really, really crazy just how well it's being able to generate currency. And it's really nice just how well it integrates with a new league mechanic, as the league mechanic just makes the strategy that much better. So why don't we get into it and talk about how to put all this together and how you can make a lot of divs yourself as well. The first thing I want to talk about is going to be the tree. Now, for this tree, you're kind of going to want to have all of your points. There aren't many points here that you can realistically drop, as most of this is required, but you could technically make this work with somewhere around 6 to 7 less points, although you'll be making a little bit less money. So the whole point of this tree is going to be very simple. We're going to be focusing on picking up strong boxes. We're going to be focusing on picking up harbingers, picking up all of the breach nodes that give us more monsters from our breaches, or just more breaches in general, all of the delirium nodes that do something, and lastly, we are going to be picking up all of the Beyond nodes, as Beyond is going to be a really nice addition on top of all this. Now, as I mentioned, you can drop a few points. So if you feel like your build cannot handle Beyond, that would be the first thing you'd want to drop. You'd want to drop all the Beyond nodes and just do this strategy without Beyond. But I'd highly encourage you to add Beyond in, as it's just going to give you more money. If you want to start at the bottom of the tree, we are going to go and pick up Twice Tempered, as it's going to give us an additional strongbox, as well as the 2 breach nodes here that are going to either give us more monsters per breaches or just a higher chance for breaches in general, which is a great thing. Each of these breaches are going to be worth a lot of money, mostly due to the league mechanic just absolutely making the breaches give an insane amount of loot. Then we're going to be pathing up and we're going to be picking up Ominous Arrival for a Harbinger, and we're going to pick up Pact with Energy for the Nicotech. Now, the Nicotech is something I think at this point a lot of people know about, but the whole point of this is we're going to be running a Rested Sulfite Scarab on every single one of our maps, which is going to allow us to see the sulfite veins in our maps. And with Pact with Energy, for each one we click, we get 35% generic damage, 15% movement speed, and +1 to all maximum resistances. This means we get a lot of free stats within our maps, and there really isn't a different scarab that we want to use instead, making this just a great addition for 2 points in a scarab slot that was useless anyways, as a massive speed and damage increase, which is going to really help you towards the end of the map, where dealing with 100% delirium might be a little bit hard. Then we're going to keep pathing up and picking up Unspeakable Offense. This just makes the Harbingers go by a lot faster. Without this node, they just take forever to spawn their minions and it just doesn't really feel too good. And we're going to be picking up Secret Operations and all 3 of the small nodes. Now, we do not need Tamper Proof. This is just a waste of a point because we already have the compass that is going to give us the effect of tamper proof, meaning if we just pick it here, it's just a waste of a passive point and doesn't do anything in our build. Then we're going to go and get Flash Breach. This is just going to make our breaches faster. If you can't handle these breaches, if your build isn't strong enough and you need them to be a little bit slower, just don't take Flash Breach, and you can even take Heavy Breach if you really want it. Although this is going to slow down your speed by quite a bit, but this is an option if you really, really need a slower breach and if you have a little bit of a weaker build. We're going to also path over to the right to pick up Eve of Evasion. Now, this is a really fun node. There are 4 different roles on here that give you a chance for even more breaches. So 4 for 1, 3 for 2, 2 for 3, 1 for 10. And these are all individual rolls, meaning if you get really lucky, all of these can proc at the same time, giving you something like 15 breaches in a single map. This is just a really nice node to overall just give you more money per map that you do. Then we're going to path up and we're going to come into the middle. We're going to be picking up First Wave for the Harbinger bosses. These are just amazing to find, as well as the 3 quant nodes in the middle. Now, you can skip on these 3 quant nodes again if you need less points. And we're going to be picking up both Backup Cache and Vault of Mysteries, as these are going to be incredible money multipliers for all of our strong boxes. Not picking up Concealed Logistics because this absolutely sucks and is not a good point at all. Lastly, at the top, we're going to be picking up Otherworldly Artifacts. This gives us 20% increased density, which is amazing, as well as the small nodes giving us more breach density. And we're going to be picking up both Imagined Pursuits and Screaming Whispers. More splinter size is going to be great because we're going to be mostly farming sim splinters. These are going to be about a quarter of our total profit. And if you do need more points, this is another thing you could drop. You can completely just drop Imagine Pursuits, but it does on average give you a few more chaos per map, making this a good point to pick up since we're here for Screaming Whispers anyway. Then we'll come over and get ourselves Peril Clarion, as Baydat is the type of Beyond monsters that's going to give us the tainted currency, which is worth a lot of money. And we're going to be pathing over to Paranoid Fixation through the bottom. And it's going to give us just more chances at Delirium Orbs, as well as making any unique monsters give us additional chance for Delirium Orb. We're going to be taking the gateway from the right side over to the left, and we're going to be picking up red altars, which in my opinion are a little bit better. Now, if you don't like red altars, you can always just go blue altars. This is up to you. The points are right here, and it's the same amount of points, so just feel free to pick whichever altar you like. And lastly, we're going to be picking up all of the delirium nodes that are going to be very important to make sure, one, we have enough time to actually do our mirror. Sometimes we might not have enough time, as well as making it scale faster, meaning we get to the better loots a lot faster. Now, if you can't handle the scaling, you can drop all three of these points to make the delirium substantially easier, but also substantially reduce your profits. I would really recommend to pick these up if you can. We're also going to be taking Endless Tide, which means we don't spawn any Beyond bosses. This is going to be a really big buff for this build because there's going to be so many monsters in these maps that we need this node. Otherwise, we're just going to instantly proc a boss and lose half of the Beyond. The new Affliction League mechanic is what makes Beyond worth running because it's going to generate us a hell of a lot more currency. And that is going to, on average, give us more loots than if we consistently spawned a boss for the tainted currency. But we still want to make those Beyond monsters worth it, so we're going to pick up Finished Opulence to get more tainted currency out of what we do kill. Next, let's talk about the setup that you're going to need for this and how we are going to put everything together to begin running our maps. So for Scarabs, they're going to be very simple. We want to run a Polished Harbinger Scarab, and you can run a Gilded one if you want, but personally I found Polished has a very good price to Harbinger ratio, as well as a Polished Ambush Scarab. Now this, I would highly encourage you for you to run a Gilded one, especially because we have so many strong boxes in our maps, and because strong boxes on average give you so much extra currency. You can run Polished or Rusted as well if you feel like Gilded's a little bit too much money for you. And then we're also going to pair that with a Rusted Breach and a Rusted Sulfite. Now there's no reason to get these as anything but Rusted. The Breach is just simply here to give us an additional breach, and the Polished and Gilded versions don't do anything for us that we care about. And then for the Sulfite Scarab, this is the same thing. We just need Nico to be in our map. We don't actually care to get the Sulfite. As for our compasses, they're going to be very simple. We're going to be running Mysterious Harbinger to make all of our Harbingers give substantially more loot, as well as giving us an additional Harbinger in our maps. We'll be running +2 additional strong boxes. This just gives us even more money, and it saves us a passive point on our tree because we don't need to pick up the node that makes them corrupted and rare. We're going to be running a Mirror of Delirium because this compass is a lot cheaper, and it costs us substantially less points to get Mirror of Delirium on our map this way than to pick up 7th Gate. And lastly, we're going to be running the Beyond compass, as this is how we're going to be forcing Beyond on every single one of our maps. And it's going to give us 25% increased pack size, which is going to scale really well. Then for the map that we want to run, personally, I've been running all this on Tropical Island. I have attempted to do some strands, and I've attempted to do some burial chambers, and both of those are very good maps if you wish to do those instead. But personally, I have not found as good returns on my simulacrum splinters on any other map but Tropical Island. With this setup, I've been able to get somewhere around 180 sim splinters on average per map. And if I were to do this in burial chamber, for example, my average is around 120 to 130. It's just not as good of a map. And if we want to quickly look at the EV of you getting a doctor out of the map, unfortunately, it's not looking very good. From quite a lot of personal testing in a burial chamber myself, I've been getting somewhere around 0.2 gamblers per map, which would give us an effective rate of seeing a doctor at 1 in every 1,700 maps we run. Unfortunately, we just do not have enough in these maps, and we do not have enough quantity, and we do not have enough divination card chance to realistically make burial chambers good. But if you really want to do burial chambers, you are free to do it for the very, very small chance at a doctor. But I do want to warn you that you're going to get substantially less splinters than Tropical Island, meaning your overall profit is going to be substantially lower, while your average extra chaos per map is not going to be that much higher with the chance at a doctor. You're only getting about 2 chaos from each of the doctor chances versus the 10 plus chaos that you're getting in simulacrum splinters if you were to do Tropical Island. The final thing to mention about our setup is we are going to be using Exarch altars. I personally really prefer Exarch altars, but as I mentioned in the passive tree section, you can use Eater altars if you want. It's the same exact passive points as we're pathing right by the Eater altars. So this is mostly a personal choice on you, but personally, I found Exarch altars to be the best with this strategy. We're also going to be putting ambush on every single one of our maps, as 4 additional strong boxes for 4 chaos is incredibly value efficient, and this is just unbeatable by any of the other possible options this league. Next, let's talk about how to run these maps. And the first thing I want to talk about is going to be the league mechanic. The Affliction League mechanic is going to be a very large contributor to the potential currency that you can get from doing the strategy. The thing that we're going to be interested in the most is getting all the blue juice. I would highly recommend, if you can swap to a Primalist, you should swap to a Primalist for this farming strategy. That'll give you 40% increased blue juice from all the juice that you soak up in the Wildwood. And that's going to give you a lot more money because if you haven't noticed, blue juice is absolutely cracked. Blue juice is by far better than both yellow and purple. And it's going to give you incredibly, incredibly dense maps. If you get around 3,500, 4,000 blue juice in your affliction before you start one of these maps, you will see so much currency in each of these tropical islands that you will actually have to go into your filter and tone up the strictness of it because there's just going to be way too much loot to pick up that's not going to be efficient. You will kind of see the same thing with yellow juice. And purple juice is kind of useless, especially if you're playing in solo play, as it only is a rarity multiplier, which is very, very useless in solo non-magic find gameplay. But yellow will also give you a little bit of a currency multiplier, so it'll feel kind of good. And personally, from my personal experience, what I found is doing a little bit of a mix of both yellow and blue to give the best outcome, as yellow seems to also be stacking with blue, giving you substantially better currency, but it is nowhere near as good as blue. I would say if you have to choose between the two, you always choose to follow blue. Once you've done your Wildwood, you can start the rest of your map. So your map's going to be very simple. You want to start the Delirium mirror, and you just simply want to walk through, and you want to click on all the boxes. You want to touch all the breaches, and you just want to map through the map as fast as you can. One thing that's been kind of hard for me to do, and I would really recommend you do the same thing, is don't kill everything in the map. If you kill 80% of the map, that's going to be more than enough. Wasting your time and chasing down every single little delirium cyst on the floor is just not time efficient, and it's not going to be money efficient either. You simply just want to go from lead mechanic to lead mechanic and to just kill any packs that you see. If you so happen to walk across a few of them, that's great. You do not want to get into muscle memory of walking over every single one of them. They're not going to give you that much extra splinters or extra loot to make it worth it. So try to only clear 80 to 90% of the monsters in the map. As long as you keep moving forward and you're efficient, that's the most important thing about all this. One other thing to mention that was changed in Ancestor is breaches can now stack. So if you have two breach hands next to each other, touch both of them. They will overlap their circles, but they will still keep spawning monsters as normal, meaning you effectively get two breaches done at the same time, but that might be a little bit hard if you don't have insane clear. You do need kind of insane clear to be able to handle that. But if you can handle it, touching all the breaches in sight is going to make your life a lot faster. You don't want to go and get them if they're a little bit too far, because then it might be a bit difficult for you to get the edges of both of them at the same time. But if they're right next to each other, definitely touch them. It'll save you time. It'll make you feel a little bit better as you can just explode everything at once, and it'll let you get done with the rest of your map a lot faster. The final thing to mention here is you really need to make sure you kill the boss before the mirror runs out, as we have a passive point on our tree that is going to give us one additional reward level as soon as we kill the boss, and that typically is going to be enough to push you over to reward level 9. You're mostly going to see 8. Sometimes you're going to have a few bad maps that don't allow you to actually hit 8, and then the boss will push it 8, but typically you'll be able to get 8 by yourself, and the boss will push you all the way up to 9, which does give you somewhere around 5 to 6 chaos extra per map. While albeit not a lot, it is going to be a little bit of extra on top of the massive amounts of money that you're already making. Lastly, I want to talk about the loots that you can expect from doing this strategy. What I have here in this quad tab is about 5 hours of me efficiently farming this strategy on my self-igniter, which I'll have a link in the description below if you want a build guide on how to put it together yourself, which personally I think is going to be the most efficient build to farm this strat with. But all this was done on stream, so if you want to actually see the full 5 hours of me doing this, you can look at the VODs on my Twitch and see for yourself how I gathered all this. But if we want to look at this, a lot of this loot is very simple to sell, and it's going to be very easy to offload. A very large chunk of this is going to be things that you can bulk sell. So for example, you see a lot of alterations, which you can choose to skip out if you don't want to pick them, a lot of fusings, a lot of eldritch currency, a lot of scarabs, and a few items that are pretty easy to sell individually in large bulks, such as awakened sextants, such as forbidden tomes, chaos orbs, so on and so forth. A lot of this loot is very easy to sell, and none of it will really stick around. The nice thing about this strategy is everything you get here aren't items that are going to take you a week to sell. This whole tab of loots will easily be something that I can sell in maybe about an hour or so, just sitting here and maybe having dinner after doing a long farming session. The other thing to point out here is the sheer amount of raw currency you're going to get. As you can see here, I've gotten 13 raw div from 40 total maps of doing this. I've also ended up getting 8 exalted orbs, so take that for what you will in terms of the rare currency that you'll see in the strategy. I also only ended up getting 1 Valdo's puzzle box, as these seem to be a little bit rare, but I did end up getting myself 2 Voidborn Reliquary keys in 40 maps of doing this. If we want to look at PoE stock, we can see that my total value of all the loot in here is 61 div. Now that's not the full story, because currently PoE stock does think one of the clusters that we got is worth 2.5 div, which is not true. This is actually worth about 1.5 to 2 div right now, and it currently is pricing the simulacrum splinters at 1C each, so we are not choosing to count for those. Lastly, thanks to Diala's is 1.2 div when it's actually 1.1 or so div, so we're just going to manually input the price of that. The rest of the loot in here, as you can see, the majority of it is made up by only a few items, mainly the raw divines, the simulacrums, which sell very quickly to all the people who love doing simulacrums, wakened sextants, fusings, and just a few other miscellaneous currencies. It does say that we have 7 pages of stuff, but if I were to type scarab in here, as you can see, 3 of the pages are just scarabs, which I would just shove into my scarab tab and then just bulk sell through PoE Stack and their bulk tool very quickly in one trade to get rid of all of them. The other thing that's taking up the majority of all of these pages are all of the Delirium Orbs. Now, what you're going to want to do with all the Delirium Orbs is going to be very simple. You're going to want to take all of the Deli Orbs that you get out of here, and instead of trying to sell them as they are, which you can do very easily, you might want to buy yourself a little bit of blue juice and re-roll the orbs through the harvest bench. Now, don't try to roll for skittering, as skittering is unbelievably rare from these, but you're going to try to roll all these into either the currency ones, so the ones with the little chaos orb in the corner, or any of the divination ones, as both of those types sell very quickly. It really shouldn't take you too much extra blue juice to be able to re-roll all these. And the nice thing is you can then sell these for a bulk rate of 10 to a div, or whatever the current prices are. It's going to make it substantially easier than attempting to sell 15 different types of orbs, but you can potentially find someone on TFT who will just buy any orb you have for a set price. That might be another option. But overall, a lot of this loot is going to be just a few items that you are going to want to sell individually, maybe things such as the fracturing shards or any of the random good cards that you get, such as the Samurai's Eyes. But realistically, most of this is just going to be something that you just put up for however many for a div. You just sell it as so, and then you just move on with your life, making this really, really simple to get through. If we want to look at the total loot here, we have 63.6 div. Again, this is the 21 div that we got in all the loot in here, as well as 1.6 div for the cluster that is currently mispricing, as well as 1 div for the Dialis. Again, as I mentioned, I did this over the course of 5 hours, meaning we are effectively making about 13 div an hour. Now, these prices are going to fluctuate, and the price of everything in here is going to change. When I did this calculation about 2 hours ago, the total value was somewhere around 13.1 div, so it's going to fluctuate as items are going to go up and down in price. But consistently, as I've done this for 3 days now, I've been making somewhere around 13 div. I've actually been making 15 div for a few days because the price of simulacrums were actually a lot higher. Currently, they are 1 to 3, but they used to be 2 to 5, meaning I have to give up half a simulacrum less per trade. That did bring the money per hour down from 15 to 13. And you could probably assume that is going to also maybe go down to 12 or 11 as simulacrums become even more abundant in the economy. But for now, currently, it's going to be somewhere around 13 div an hour, depending on the prices of everything. Now, that was with a very efficient build. Obviously, not everyone's going to be playing a self-igniter. So if you are not playing a super, super fast, super zoomy build, I would say this is somewhere around 10 to 11 div an hour, which still is incredibly strong. This is basically one of the best money-making strategies in the game right now if you do not want to go absolutely balls to the wall with juicing all of your maps and doing either doctor farming or apothecary farming or farming in raid strong boxes or any of the super high level strategies. For a strategy just as simple as buy 4 scarabs, buy 4 compasses, put them in, and then just run the map and explode everything, the money per hour that you're making from this is incredibly good, and I really, really like this strategy. That's all I really have to say for this video. If you have any other questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. I'll be more than happy to help you. Or you can come by my Twitch where you can see me do similar strategies, and you can feel free to ask your questions there. I'll always be more than happy to help. Or if you just simply want to hang out with me and all the cuties, I'll be more than happy to see you there. Other than that, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope to see you cuties in the next video.